Tomorrow I will feel much better. Tomorrow I will start anew. Tomorrow is a shining prospect. Tomorrow will be my rescue. I'll get up when the day is dawning. I'll feel as fresh as the morning dew. I'll face and conquer every hurdle. I know that I'll be breaking through. Tomorrow, hold on and wait for tomorrow. It's alright.
Hello and welcome to the Goldberry Artisans Podcast. My name is Emily. I'm coming to you from the wintry and beautiful state of Maine. I am a college student who's going to graduate in May, who just loves to explore yarn and knitting and sometimes other crafts. Today I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of things that I've made because it's been a while since I have sat down and recorded. So I have some knitted things, a cross-stitching project, and my first time darning some socks. So that is what we will talk about today, and the 3-2-1 Create project. So happy New Year to everyone. I hope you are having a lovely 2019 so far. I know for me, the whole month of January kind of becomes my New Year's. It's not all about the one day. I like the whole month. So I've been enjoying having some time off from school. A slow start to my new year. And welcome to any new viewers, and welcome back to any returning viewers. Thank you for coming back. I have missed being able to talk to you and connect with you in the comments section. And on Instagram. I almost said on Ravelry. I don't really do much on Ravelry. So yeah, I know that I need to try to record a podcast, and I'll start talking to myself in my head as if I'm on a podcast. Like I'll be working on a project and kind of pretending that I'm recording a podcast in my mind about what I want to say about whatever it is that I'm working on. I was doing that this week, so I figured I needed to record. I do want to recognize the conversation that's going on primarily on Instagram within the knitting and fiber arts community right now. Based on one or two things, this whole conversation about racism and white privilege within the crafting community has really opened up, and there's a lot of people discussing this in positive ways. I've really only seen people discussing this in a positive way. But it's not something that I am going to address here for a variety of reasons. If you have not been in on the conversation, like I was away this past weekend and I came home and there was so much, it was hard to kind of filter through. If you want more information, I can point you to a couple of people that have been doing a really good job of processing all of this. Or you can just search hashtags like the hashtag #DiverseKnitty on Instagram. Yeah. So but I feel like that's the kind of thing that I am still processing. So maybe I'll talk about it at a later date. But I do want to acknowledge that conversation is going on. If you're interested, I'm sure if you're on Instagram, you've probably seen a lot of conversations about that. All right, I think that's all of my other things. So now we will dive into knitting. with this lens that I use, you can't tell how much I talk with my hands. I'm sorry if you like see me moving around. It's because I'm moving my hands a lot. You just can't see it. I'll start off. Oh, wow, I only have like one active work in progress, but it's almost done. It's crazy. I was a test knitter for Bex of Little Home Designs and her Feather and Bones socks. This pattern actually just released. I'm recording on Friday, January 18th, and the pattern just released today, which is exciting. So I get to be a test knitter, and I knit the smaller size. There's 2 stitch counts. I knit the smaller size, I think it's 56 stitches, because I've been having a lot of issues with hand knit socks sliding down. I've just kind of been doing like a 64 stitch sock just because, don't really know why, but I've been having a lot of issues with them falling down. So I wanted to try out a smaller size, and I love how these fit. It has a ribbed back to the leg, and then the front is the Feather and Bones stitch pattern, which is also a combination. It's kind of like knit pearls and lace, so it is pretty stretchy. So these do fit really well. They're nice and snug, which I love. And I'm knitting these with yarn from Legacy Fiber Arts. It was back closer to when they had first started their business, and it was really hard. I hadn't been able to get any of their yarns because they would do an update and it would all be snapped up before I could get any. And so they had some pre-orders for like a Game of Thrones color like club. I've never watched Game of Thrones. I don't know anything about Game of Thrones, but I bought the yarn because I just wanted some of their yarn. So I don't remember what the colorway is, but it was like a one-time club colorway. I am almost done the second sock. I just started the toe decreases. And I have been knitting these on 9-inch circulars. This is my first time knitting a sock on 9-inch circulars, and I have really loved it. I am traditionally a double-pointed needle person. I will knit using magic loop, but it's not my favorite. I prefer DPNs whenever that's an option. But I was interested in trying out, I've been interested in trying out 9-inch circulars for a while. But I had bought like a size 8, a US size 8, I don't know what that is in millimeters, US size 8 9-inch circular needle for my little sister to use. She was wanting to knit something, and I figured those would be good. She's 10, she's got little hands. And then I ended up using them on some sweater sleeves. I'll show you the sweater later. That I had been using an 8-inch, or not, a size 8 circular needle and had been magic looping, and it was taking me forever to get to the sleeves. And it's a bulkier, it's like an Aran weight yarn. It should not have taken me that long to finish stockinette stitch sleeves. I don't normally get bogged down on sleeves. But then as soon as I switched to the 9-inch circulars, suddenly the sleeves were done. So I realized, I think it was partly the needle that I was using for magic loop wasn't the best. The cable wasn't very flexible. But I don't have a lot of options for larger size needles. I tend to knit fingering weight yarns the most, so I have a good variety of like size 5 and down for circulars, different kinds of circulars and double points, but not for larger sizes. But as soon as I switched to the 8-inch, the 9-inch circular, I loved it. So then I went into Knitwit in Portland and grabbed a pair of 9-inch circulars, and I have absolutely loved them. I switched to using double pointed needles for the heel, for when I was going back and forth and then picking up stitches. Then I switched back to the 9-inch. And then once I have too few stitches on the toe, I switch to double pointed needles to finish off the toe. But that doesn't bother me. I have like a little bag where I keep knitting notions and things in, and I keep pretty much all of my double pointed needles in there, just so that way I know where they are. And I carry that with me when I'm knitting, and so I can just pull the double pointed needles out when I'm ready and work on the toe. or the heel. So these are a top-down heel flap and gusset sock, which is my default and preferred method for sock knitting. Oh, I forgot. I do have another pair of socks that I finished. This is what happens when it's been a while. I forget about things. I was working on a pair of Christmas socks for myself. This yarn is West Yorkshire Spinners. Don't remember what the colorway, but it's their holiday colorway that they said that they made this year. I bought this yarn from the Woolly Thistle, and I also bought the coordinating green yarn. I used hardly any of the green, so there's plenty of that for future socks. I love my West Yorkshire Spinner socks. And again, I knit these 64 stitch, and they're baggy. I did like I think it was like a 6x2 rib on the front to kind of try to help with that, but it doesn't help a lot, honestly. But I do have enough of this yarn left. I could make a second pair of socks, so I may try another pair next year. I was knitting this through like the end of November and through December, and I finished them like on Christmas Eve. But why I remembered these was because I was saying that top down, heel flap and gusset is my favorite sock construction on double pointed needles usually. Well, these I knit 2 at a time, toe up on circular needles. Just because that way, since I wanted them done in time for Christmas, I could just work on them. I could just, however big they were on Christmas Eve, if I wasn't done, I could just bind off. And I did line up the stripes pretty much the whole way. And so I did toe up, but I had been debating. I was about halfway through the leg, and my struggle with toe up socks is that I do not like short row heels. I don't like working them, and I don't like how they fit most of the time. But then, I think it was Eva of The Charm of It was talking about her method of still doing a heel flap and gusset on a toe up sock. Because the problem, you can still do a traditional heel flap and gusset sort of thing on a toe up sock. You do gusset increases, and then you turn the heel. It's like you basically do the same thing, but in reverse. But then you have to plan out when you start your increases, which for me, I've used a variety of yarn weights and needle sizes to knit socks. Some people can take their socks and just count, okay, well this is how many rows I do between the toe and when I start my increases. But that doesn't really work for me, and that just seemed like a lot of work. So I was debating about what to do. And other times I've tried to measure for it, it just doesn't work out. But then Eva was saying that she just does, you do it the exact same as you would normally. So this is the foot. So normally on a toe up sock you would do gusset increases, short rows, heel flap, pick the stitches up along here, and then keep going. But for this method, you just knit however long you want your leg, or your foot, sorry, and then you do your slip stitch pattern. Your heel flap is here on the bottom instead. Then you do your short rows to turn the heel, pick up stitches, and then decrease along the leg, which is amazing because then I can make it exactly like I'm used to making it. And my decreases do go to about here. So it's the kind of thing that if you wanted if it was like a pattern all the way around, all around the leg, this method may not work so well. But for a vanilla sock or a sock where there's only a pattern on the front of the leg portion, this would work. So I'm really happy with that. So now if I knit toe up socks, then I can switch to that and do that heel. I like to change it up with socks. I get a little bored if I knit them the same way every time. So I've kind of been going back and forth. I've done a few pairs 2 at a time. I've done some on double pointed needles, now 9-inch. It's just sort of whatever I feel like doing at the time. Alright, I have some finished objects. I'm going to kind of start from like the oldest, I think, if I can remember, and work my way to the present. My first finished object is my Land of Sweets cowl. This pattern is by Helen Stewart. I was knitting on this all through the month of December. I did an Advent mini skein swap organized by Sarah from the Dabbling Shepherdess, and she just kind of put a call out on Instagram if anyone was interested in participating in an Advent swap, which I was excited to see because I always love seeing Advent calendars, like mini skein Advent calendars, but those are also generally a little out of my price range, a little or a lot, and I completely understand why they cost how much they do. It's a lot of work. I mean, just because it's a smaller skein doesn't mean it's less work to dye it. I 100% want to support people who who dye Advent calendars. I just cannot afford that right now. But instead, we did a swap, and it was, you used all indie dyed yarns. So you still got to experience different kinds of yarns and different indie dyers and the beautiful yarns that they make without buying a whole calendar. So I swapped with Sharon, who is Seashore Sharon on Instagram. Well, like, she sent to me and I sent to somebody else. And this is my cowl. I have yet to wear it because I need to like weave in the last couple of ends. But I can try it on. Well, actually, I can show you first the inside. Look at all those ends. You see them? All of the ones like that, all the new yarns that I joined on, I kind of wove in the ends as I went, where basically when I would go to wrap the yarn around my needle to knit a stitch, I would take the end and just loop it over that yarn. Almost like, to me it's the same action as like catching a float in color work. It's the same method I use on my Cozy Memories blanket when I start a new square, because there was no way I was going to weave in all of those ends with a tapestry needle. That was not happening. But I do have like my bind off and I think my cast on end to weave in. I think I'll do that today when I'm done recording. Let's sit up a little bit. So yes, I love this. It's like the perfect right around your neck, but still a good size. Because I've made some cowls in the past that weren't awkward, like they didn't hug your neck, but they weren't really tall enough. I live in Maine. I need warm cowls. I wear cowls generally when I'm going outside. But I like how this one has a lot of, because it's so tall, it sits really nicely. When I knit cowls that are not tall enough, they kind of like flop. And I don't really like that look on me. So, yeah, I'm very excited. Very excited to wear this. And it was so much fun to, you know, open up a new colorway every day, what it was going to be, get to see what it was. And I went back and forth for a while on whether I wanted to add my squares, not my squares, cannot talk, whether I wanted to add the skeins to my Cozy Memories blanket or another project. But I ended up deciding that I wanted to make a special project with them, something I would wear. If I do a swap like this in the future, they may go into a blanket, since I already have this cowl now. But I'm really happy with how this turned out. I'm going to toss it over on my desk so I remember to weave in the ends. Didn't even knock anything over. Alright, I'm just going to talk briefly about this next one. I've talked about it a little more extensively in the past, but it is now finished. This is the Autumn's Siren Shawl by Beatrice Perrin-Dolan. I gotta look up the yarn that I used to make sure I get the name right. I mean, I finished this a little while ago. It's knit out of Green Mountain Spinnery Mountain Mohair. And I knew I was going to be pushing it for yardage. I had, like, I don't remember how many skeins of this ice blue colorway, and I have one skein of this darker, I think it's called winter green colorway. So I did end up running out of the light blue, so it just sort of has a dark blue stripe. And because of the short rows, it goes all the way across, which is cool. I did 100% mess up the short rows. This should be deeper, but I read the pattern, and I was just like, oh, do short, like, knit this many stitches past each wrap and turn, and go back. I got this. Closed up the pattern, put it away. Yeah, apparently after you got to a certain point, you were supposed to knit fewer stitches, I think it was. In between the wrap and turns, whatever. You were supposed to change it up, and I did not. So it's not as deep as it's supposed to be, but nobody, who's gonna know? Who's gonna know? And it's not super long. I knit the smaller size. There are 2 size options. But it is, I can, like, the ends are right here. I can just kind of take it over, wrap it up. So for sure, when it's cold outside, again, I live in Maine. This will be really nice and cozy to have on when I'm headed outside. But I'm also thinking, I have not blocked this yet. I'm thinking when I block this, I'm going to try to stretch it out a little bit more horizontally. And maybe get a little bit bigger that way, so I can wear it more as I like, because traditionally I typically wear shawls like this, and then I wrap the ends around. Sometimes when I'm around the house, I will just wrap it like this, and I think this shawl has a really good shape to do that. I do have one shawl pin that I could use. It's a little big though, so I don't like to use it. So any recommendations for nice shawl pins, preferably like a handmade one, small business, smaller though, because the one I have is like this big with a stick that runs through it, so it's a little bit cumbersome. Or I should just like stick a knitting needle through it. That would work. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. This was so much fun to work on, because this cable pattern is super easy to memorize. And then it's just garter stitch short rows, as long as you're paying attention to the directions. It was literally like 2 lines that I just didn't read. It's okay, that's why I talk about being okay with making mistakes. Sometimes it happens. So yeah, the ends are woven in. For whatever reason, I weave in my ends, I block, then I cut them. Just kind of let the yarn get all settled in. I don't know if that's like the right way to do it, or if there's a better way. That's just what I do. So I do need to block this. My problem is that I have limited space for blocking. So, and I had some other things blocking recently. I have a shawl that I literally am looking at right now. I knit it last summer and it's still not blocked. So. But speaking of Beatrice Parandolin, who designed this pattern, she hasn't uploaded an episode in a little while, but I've really been enjoying her podcast. I think it's just called The Thread and Ladle. It's an audio podcast, The Thread and Ladle podcast. And I've just really been enjoying it. She talks about some different topics, and she also interviewed Casey Ryder, who owns a fiber shop in Portland, Maine, that I've been to, but she also is the representative for Cashmere People Yarns. And so Beatrice interviewed her on her last episode, and that was amazing. It was a really good episode. So, she's a Maine-based designer, and yeah, I like all of Beatrice Parandolin's patterns, and I've been enjoying her podcast. The next finished object I will discuss is a sweater. I've been working on this for way too long. This is the one I was talking about when I said that I was stuck on the sleeves, magic looping them, switched to 9-inch circulars, and they flew by. I started this back in October. Oh, I should say this is the Louise top-down sweater by Carrie Bostic Hogue, another wonderful Maine designer that I love. And I knit this using Imperial Yarn Columbia in The brown is their Osprey colorway. The blue is their Kingfisher blue colorway. I had started this in October with like the thought maybe in the back of my mind it would be done in time for Rhinebeck. And then when it wasn't, I just sort of, it went in the back burner. I had some deadline knitting through November and December. But I picked this back up in December and finished it this month. It's a top-down raglan construction, which I know is not everybody's favorite for cardigans. It can sometimes tend to fall off the shoulders. But with this one, I think that it's loose enough, like it has enough positive ease that that's not really going to be a problem. And it is a buttoned cardigan. I know sometimes raglan sleeved, I know that sometimes cardigans with raglan construction can tend to be like open front, no buttoned, buttonless. What is the correct term for that? I don't know. But I think that this one will be okay. So the yarn, I'd heard somebody talk about it. It might have been Sarah from the Dabbling Shepherdess. I don't really remember. Talked about Imperial yarn. It's from the Imperial Stock Ranch. Hold on, I want to make sure I get all the information correct. So it is U.S. wool. I think that's why Sarah was talking about it. She was talking about wool yarns that are made in the U.S. So it is, so it's made in the U.S., I think Montana, I believe. And so I had bought several skeins of this dark brown on a Ravelry D-Stash page. And I wanted to knit the Great Falls tunic by Pam Allen. It's a bulky weight tunic with different length options and that I really loved, and I wanted to make it. I cast it on, but the fabric was just, it was too thin. And then I double checked. This yarn is an Aran weight yarn, not a bulky weight yarn. Not sure why I thought it was a bulky weight. Don't know. But it's not bulky, it's Aran. And so therefore, when I was using like size 15 needles or 13 or whatever it was see-through, which could have been fine, but I also knew once I double checked, I knew I was not going to have enough yarn to complete a tunic. So I frogged it, the yarn sat for a while until I discovered this pattern. And I thought I was going to have like just barely enough yarn. But what I liked about this pattern was that the neckband, the button band, and the cuff on the body and on the sleeves were in a different color. And I think in the original pattern there's actually 2 contrast colors, I believe, that are used in combination for all these things. But I just went with the blue. I figured that's like a nice like neutral E color. I like blue. Because I wasn't sure how I felt. The only other yarn colorways I could find that would go with the brown, it was either going to be like use a color, like I thought about maybe a red or maroon or blue, or like a tan color, but I wasn't sure how I would feel about such a high contrast between this really dark chocolatey brown and then like a tan sandy color. I wasn't sure how that would look. I tried looking through the project pages to see if anybody else had done that, but the original project, it was like a light gray for the body and then darker grays for these, so I couldn't really find any pictures where people had done a darker color for the body and a really light color for the bands and cuffs. So I decided to just switch it up and go with a color. I do still need to purchase buttons for this. I'll probably wear it without buttons because it has so much positive ease. I mean, not so much. More than I thought there would be. Because I don't remember if I swatched for this or not. It's possible I did not. So I wasn't sure how much positive ease I would have, if any, because I basically picked the size that I had the yardage for. But I ended up, I have like almost a full skein of the brown and the blue left over. I bought 2 skeins of the blue. But anyway, I need to get buttons. I'll probably go back to Knitwit at some point. Who knows when, because school and other stuff is happening next week. I'll talk about that later. But I would like to get back in there into Knitwit, and they have a nice button selection. Probably wear it in and pick out buttons. Yeah, I'm really excited. I don't have any hand knit brown cardigans. I have sort of like a tan, like a gray tan color one. But my other cardigan that I wear all the time is gray. But I do still wear a lot of browns. So I'm excited to have this done. Another finished object is a shawl. This is actually a Christmas gift for a friend. We live like an hour and a half away from each other. I was going to see her this weekend and bring this. Didn't end up happening. So I still have it to talk about. This, gotta find the information. Oh boy. Fichi Bleu pattern by Orlan Suke. Put the information on the screen. It's a free shawl pattern. When I do gift knits, I like to either use patterns I already own or free patterns, because I love supporting designers, but I also know that I'm already spending time and money on it. When I can, I like to not spend money on a pattern. And I knit this out of Knit Picks Swish DK. Do I have the color? Indigo Heather colorway. My friend had requested, I knit her like a hat, I think last year. She had requested like a winter scarf that she could wear inside and outside. So I figured I was looking for a pattern that would be like a DK, a sport or a DK. She's going to become a teacher. She's getting her master's right now in student teaching. So I wanted something that would look nice for that. But I also know school temperatures can vary a lot. So I didn't want to go with anything heavier than a DK for risk of it getting too warm. But fingering weight might not be warm enough. So I knit this one. I found this pattern. So you can just wear it just like this. You can also drape it around, but this way you can kind of like pull the ends tighter, like most scarves and shawls. You can pull the ends tighter to be warm, or pull them out to be a little bit looser. And I love how this yarn draped once I blocked it. The yarn's already soft, but it just became so much softer. And it just, it's got a beautiful drape. I forget what the fiber content is. It is 100% merino wool, and it's superwash. When I do gift knitting, I like to use superwash yarns, and I often purchase yarn from Knit Picks because it's very affordable, and they offer a good range of yarns and different colors. And I really like the construction of this. A lot of times with shawls, there's a center panel, but it's typically like with a triangle shaped shawl, it's a narrow center panel, maybe, or sometimes there's just one stitch and you do your increases on either side of that. But in this case you have, it's kind of hard to see, like a large, I would almost say that's like, once it blocked out, like at least 7 or 8 inches of a center panel, and you do your increases beside the center panel. So I think that kind of creates almost a crescent shape for a shawl instead of a standard triangle, even though the increases are like a triangle shawl. So I like that. It doesn't look as bandana-like, which is fine for me, but I wasn't sure if my friend would like that. So I really like the construction. I can definitely see how you could easily adapt this, make the center panel larger, smaller, adapt this for different weight of yarns. You can do a bulky weight version even. And it was a super easy knit, like alternating between a textured, like a broken rib kind of pattern, and then stockinette sections. So it was just a really enjoyable knit, especially since I was working on it like during the end of the school semester when things are a little crazy. But it was still like, I didn't have to think about it. I could just pull it out and work on it. So yeah, I really like how that shawl came out. We gotta get it up to her at some point. Oh, I do have one more finished object that I do not have with me. My sister and my mom had both mentioned at different times, like, oh, I wish I had a different hat, or my younger sister has like one hat that I had knit her, I don't even know, like 8 years ago, and she still wears it, and I was like, oh wow, you still wear that? And she said, well, yeah, it's like the only hat that I have. So then I kind of had the thought in the back of my mind. She was home over Christmas break. I was like, oh, I should make her another hat. And then I knit my mom a hat for Christmas, I think either last year or the year before, and she really likes it, but I had knit it more slouchy because she's always struggled with hats falling off her head because they were too tight. So I was like, I'll knit a slouchy one, so that way that's not a problem. And she likes that, but she also would like one that was a little tighter on her head. And one of my favorite hats, my favorite hat to wear is my quill hat by Andrea Mowry. It just fits. I'm not going to put it on right now. But it fits really nicely. It has a big enough ribbed brim that you can fold it over, wear it tighter on your head, or keep it flat and have it be a little slouchy. And I've never had any problems with this, like pulling my hair being too tight. It's a really hard balance with hats. Hats are an easy thing to knit, but it can be really hard to find that balance of tight enough to stay on your head, but not so tight it like gradually slides back as you're wearing it, but also not so loose that it's not really giving you any warmth and it falls off if the wind blows. Have I mentioned that I live in Maine? These are serious considerations. You need a good hat that fits well. And I also just love the simple stitch patterning, and the crown on this hat is beautiful. I had knit mine out of yarn from Once Upon a Corgi. I think she had a base, I don't know if she still has it, but it had some yak in it. So I knit this out of, it was like a DK weight. I think a relatively like plump round DK. Because the pattern calls for worsted weight, but this turned out fine. So my sister already has her hat. I sent that up with her when she went back to school. But right after Christmas, somewhere around Christmas, Rachel from On the Round, a Maine-based yarn company, shout out to Maine, she had a sale right after Christmas, and so I grabbed a skein of her Purple Rain color in her DK. I think she didn't have any of this left on her worsted base when I checked. So I got this colorway, Purple Rain, and then I got her colorway Always a Bridesmaid in her worsted weight base. I had used this colorway to make it like short-sleeved cardigan last summer and love the color. I wanted some colors that were like neutral-y but still had some speckles and would still be fun. So I hadn't decided who was going to get which color when but then I ended up choosing Purple Rain for my sister's hat because she has a really nice like light blue, like medium blue coat, and so this matched really well with that. So I will insert a couple of pictures. This hat knit up really easily. I loved working on it, and I love Rachel's yarn. It's beautiful. And it used just about half a skein. It used like 49 grams or whatever. Yeah, 49 grams of a 100 gram skein for the hat. So I could get another hat out of this, maybe a different pattern, maybe the same one. And then this one will be for my mom. This will probably, I want to cast this on soon, especially since apparently I was realizing I have like nothing on the needles right now except socks, which is really weird for me. So speaking of projects I'm going to cast on, I'll pause here and talk about, it's not really pause, I want to talk about the 3-2-1 Create challenge that I am doing. Andy from, is it Wonder Wool or Wonder Wall? I don't know how to say it, on Instagram proposed this 3-2-1 challenge where instead of doing a make 9, like a lot of people on Instagram will make a grid of 9 items they want to make in the upcoming year. But for me, I don't do well with things that are that long term, and that doesn't leave me a lot of space for new patterns that are going to come out that I know I'm going to love. And my tendency would be like, I'm going to knit 9 garments and that's not feasible right now. So I was really excited about this project. Basically, in 3 months, you pick 2 smaller projects and 1 larger project and try to create it within for that 3 months. So it's like, okay, January, February, March, these are my 3 projects. And then you can plan for April, May, and June, another 3 projects, which I like because it seems a little bit more realistic for me, and it gives you room for new patterns that come out, new yarns, or, just step by step rather than a whole year long. It just helps break it down. And I actually published a blog post about this. Every January I seem to kind of dust off my blog, be like, I want to use this for more than just show notes. So I have all the information there if you want to refer to that, where I talk more about this. But basically, I got my notebook out, made a list, went through my Ravelry library and my queue and my favorites, and made a list of smaller projects and larger projects that I want to make. And then I narrowed it down based on whether or not I already had the yarn. I think for me personally, for this project, I want to use yarns that I already own. Not to say that I'm not going to buy yarn this year, because I 100% will buy yarn this year. But I want this to mostly be using up the yarn that I already have. I have beautiful yarn. I am giving myself a little bit of leeway. I have some yarn that I purchased before Christmas that it was like a dyed to order, so it arrived yesterday. I'm going to let myself use that. And the yarn from On the Round I bought before I decided this challenge, again right around Christmas time. So, calling that good. It's my challenge, I can make the rules. So I chose the quill hat, because I knew I wanted to make one of those for my mom and my sister, but I counted that as like one item. And then I chose the Treehouse Mitts by Melody Hoffman. I had previously knit myself a pair of these a couple years ago, but I lost one of them somewhere on campus at school, and so I only had one left. And it just sat there very lonely, because I kept thinking, I have enough yarn, I'll knit a match. Hadn't gotten around to it. So that's my second small project. I'm going to knit 2 new mittens, because the mittens were, the hand was too small. I have relatively long fingers, they're not massive, but I struggle sometimes with mittens because the hand isn't long enough, or I end up with the ribbing, instead of sitting at my wrist, the ribbing comes up to here, which is, it's fine, they're mittens. But if I'm going to knit these again, knowing that, and I can have the old one to compare to, I can adapt it as I knit. And I'll probably rip out the old mitten and maybe make a matching hat, because why not? And then my big project is going to be the Idlewood tunic by Cecily McDonald, because I already talked about how I wanted to make a tunic out of this yarn, and that didn't happen, but I still want a tunic. So I have this yarn that I received. My friend, her parents were renovating part of their house, and in doing so, we're getting rid of a bunch of things. So I inherited a sweater's quantity and a little bit extra of this yarn. I couldn't really find any information about it on Ravelry, but it's 100% wool, and it's sort of like a bluish gray colorway. So I need to wind this all up. My ball winder seems to be having some issues, so I may have to do this by hand, which will be interesting. But I'm hoping to cast this on soon. So that is the 3-2-1 Create project. Again, I've got a blog post. I'll link to things in the show notes, which can be found at goldberryartisans.com, as well as in the description box here on YouTube. I think that pretty much sums up my knitting, except I just want to talk about this. I have been working on my Cozy Memories blanket lately. It is getting rather large. I love seeing it all folded up. Love it. I'm thinking I may, right now I think I'm at 12 squares across, and before I started this new row I had 17 squares down. So I started my 18th, my 18th row, yes. So I think when I'm done that 18th row, I'm going to like take a pause, keep it out of my bed so I can start to use it, because it's almost as tall as I am right now, and it's relatively wide. So yeah, so I'll just kind of use it for a while. It's something I love about this blanket is that I can come back and add onto it in 3 years if I want to, or in 3 days. And as I mentioned, I weave in my ends as I go, and a lot of them have been clipped. The only ends that will need to be woven in are like the ones on the outside, like the bind off on the outside. Well, I can't weave that in because I bound it off on the very corner, and some of my cast on ends, basically the ends around the outside, will need to be woven in. But besides that, everything else is woven in, which is fabulous. And I actually recently added the yarns, leftovers from the yarns that are in this sweater. This is what I've called my Secret Garden sweater. The pattern is Alieska by Caitlin Hunter. This is the sweater that I wore to Rhinebeck. And I actually get to meet, I used Sweet Sparrow Fibers yarn, get to meet Julie from there, and I used Once Upon a Corgi yarn, and I got to meet Gabby. So every time I wear this sweater, it reminds me of Rhinebeck, and I love it. I did run out of like the darker brown color, so that's not in my blanket, but I added the yarn from Sweet Sparrow Fibers, yarn from 6 and 7 Fiber, and from Once Upon a Corgi. This yarn is also from Once Upon a Corgi, not in the sweater, but next to it. Those are like 3 of my favorite indie dyers. Them and On the Round. Although they're my favorites because I love their colors and I bought from them, but I feel like if I was able to buy yarn from every indie dyer would be my favorite, honestly. Just wish I could afford it. Anyway, I think that's all I have for knitting. So let's move on to cross stitching. Some of you may remember that I was working on a Christmas gift for my sister. As of this morning, it's finished. Well, the stitching portion is finished. Oh, I forgot the shop name where I bought this, but I will include a link to it. It's the Star Wars opening theme music. The words, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away on the top, and then a bunch of characters on the bottom. My sister went through and like named them all. I know a solid 3 of them. Maybe more. I've just never really watched Star Wars. Not because I don't like it, I just never have. So the stitching is finished, but this is like a leftover piece of fabric, so it doesn't leave me a lot of wiggle room for framing and finishing. I really know 0 things about finishing off cross stitch. A few cross stitch patterns I've done, I just sort of have them in the hoop and hang them up on the wall that way and do nothing to the back of it. So I need to figure that out. I could get a piece of cardboard or something and like mount this on it, like fold the ends around it and do that, because it's kind of an odd shape to get a frame for. I may check out a couple thrift stores, see if there's anything that would work, but I'll probably just end up mounting it. Need to do some research about like what I'm supposed to do before or while mounting. I have another cross stitch piece that I worked on last summer that's sitting in a basket down on my shelf down here because I didn't know what to do with it. So my track record is not great, but hopefully since this is a gift, it'll work. My sister's birthday was this week, so when it wasn't done for Christmas, my goal is to have it done by her birthday. Only missed that by 2 days. It's fine. It's fine. So yeah, that was just a lot of fun to work on, to have something else to work on. It was nice once I like gave her, I gave it to her in the bag to open up on Christmas so she could like see it, and then I could take it back and keep working on it. But it was nice once I gave it to her, she knew it was coming, so it wasn't like I had to only work on it when she was not around or when I was in my room. So that is all my cross stitching. Darning socks. I had somebody come up to me and they had this pair of mittens that they're just like work gloves, but there's a hole in one of the fingers, And they're sort of like, there's a lining on the inside. So the fingers do have, I'm trying to flip it inside out to show you. So it's like double layered. So there's like this like wool lining, and like the other side of it is like knit. I didn't get any pictures with the hole so you could actually see it. But there's a hole in this outside portion. So I've never darned socks before. I knew in theory how to do it, but I hadn't done it before. So I pretty much just patched this up like I was darning a sock. So I'm hoping that works. I had some leftover Patton's Croy sock yarn that I used, and I actually did it twice, because usually when you darn a sock, you sew some threads one direction, turn it, and weave threads in the other direction. But I ended up, then I turned it again, wove the yarn through vertically again, and then turned it and wove it through the other way, just to make sure that it was extra secure, extra warm, because these will be being used outside. So hopefully that turns out okay. But then, as I was working that, I was remembering that I had 2 pairs of socks, which when I pulled out at the beginning of the winter, I had discovered they had holes in them. Don't know how they got there, where they came from, but there they were. And it's like 2 of my first pairs of hand knit socks, and this pair is like my favorite pair. So I was very sad. But they just sat in the bottom of my basket. I did nothing about it. But while I was in the mood, while I was working on it, I darned this sock. So this hole is like right, what is that part of your foot called? Is it I don't know, like not your toes, like the part right under your toes, whatever that part of your foot is called. But that's where this hole is. So I used some leftover West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, because I know that's a really tough sock yarn, and it was like relatively close to the color. So this pair of socks, there's actually a hole in both feet. This one was farther down on the foot. This one is like just underneath the toe. I'll include some, have to take some close-up videos so you can see. So yeah, I think it got better as it went on, because this one underneath the toe was like the first sock. I did the gloves first, and there's this one. And this one just looks a little bit neater, the second one. But I'm really happy that now I can have these to wear this winter. Also means I can procrastinate on washing all my other socks longer, because I suddenly have 2 pairs of socks to wear. I procrastinate so hard on hand washing my socks. It's not that I mind washing, it's just that it means I can't use my blocking mats for anything else. I don't have a drying rack, so I normally just lay them out on my blocking mats. And that it also really limits what I can do in my room. Like, I've just been procrastinating hardcore. I just kind of keep machine washing my super wash ones. I'm wearing those. I have like 2 pairs. So this is very exciting. And this other pair of socks, this is like the first pair of socks I ever knit for myself. I think the yarn is actually, it's not a fingering weight. Look, I knit the socks. I want to give away, and I get yarn and sock in a sock knitting book. So I was just like, oh, this must be sock yarn. I knit socks with it. And then after I knit more socks, I was like, that's not fingering weight yarn. But anyway. One sock was fine, but this other sock had a hole in the same spot, like, not on your toes, the part underneath your toes, whatever it's called. Like, in pretty much the same spot as one of the purple socks. So I had some leftover Quince & Company Finch yarn in a green color that I used to darn that hole. Thankfully, this one wasn't as big. But this is the last one I did, and I think this one looks the best. But then I went on Etsy and bought myself like a vintage darning egg, I think it's called. Because I was like, I wear wool socks pretty much all the time now. And it's going to keep happening. I'm going to have to keep darning them. It was actually a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I wove in the ends in a couple other projects as well. Like put on a TV show and just darned socks. And it was actually way more fun than I thought it was going to be. So now, hopefully, I don't put it off as long. So that was my first adventure in darning socks. And I would consider it a success. I haven't worn them yet, so we will see. But yeah, I'm really excited. It's like, yes, like I know how to do it now. Now I'm not going to just like throw them at the bottom of a pile and never get to them. again, if that happens, I know how to fix them. So that's exciting. And I'll do a little personal life update. If you're not interested in that, thank you for stopping by. And I'd love to know what you are working on and what your crafting plans for this year are, if you have any. Or if you don't have any, why not? Or just do you. Anyway, I'll see you next time. A little bit of a life update. I have a lot going on right now. Well, not today. I have nothing else going on today. But as some of you may know, I have been working at a daycare. I've been there started in April of 2016. So like a little over 2.5 years. And I was doing that while I was going to school. But I'm in my last year, my senior year. This is my last semester. And I had the opportunity to do an internship. I'm going to school for accounting, and so in the spring, when it's tax season, a lot of local firms will come to my university and they will recruit college students, like accounting majors, to come on and do an internship. Like, I'll be paid like it's a normal job. I'll get credit for like an accounting elective class at my university. So yeah, I'm really excited to be able to do what I've been studying. So I start that this upcoming Tuesday, so I'll be doing that, and I only have one more class I need to take. So I'll be doing that, and then my internship will end in April, and then I graduate in May. Who knows what's going to happen after that? I am like a one day at a time kind of person. But that's exciting. I'm excited. But that meant that I had to leave my kids. I've bounced around at the daycare. It's a relatively small daycare. Like, when I first started, I was in the infant room, like, as a second person helping out, and then I eventually became the preschool 4 teacher, which meant, like, I lesson planned, and I had the same kids every day, and, like, they're my kids. Some of them, I've known them, like, the entire 2.5 years I've been there, and I've been taking care of them that long. It is definitely a job that comes with a lot of challenges, also a lot of rewards, and I really did enjoy my time there. Like, I'm excited to be moving on and doing other things, but I was crying. Like, I just barely got out of the door before I fully broke down on my last day. So I'm getting teary now thinking about it. But thankfully, like, it's 2 minutes away from where I live, and, like, I have to return some stuff, like return my shirts and my keys and pick up my last check. So, like, I'll be doing that, and I'm still going to pop in, like, for the preschool graduation, and maybe hop in a couple times, just say hi to everybody. So it's not like it's, like, I'm saying goodbye forever. But it's really bittersweet, because these are kids that I've built relationships with, and I also know that they listened to me because they were used to me. They listen to me better than they do some of the other teachers. So I'm hoping that goes okay. Because for some of them, I'm really the only teacher they've had for like 1 or 2 years. So definitely a hard decision, but one that I'm excited about at the same time. Very bittersweet for sure. Oh, but on my last day, I was like, why am I doing this? I can do both. It'll be okay. Why am I leaving? Change can be hard sometimes. But, yeah, just a little bit. So if things will be a little scattered as I'm getting into a new routine, and it's going to be really busy. It's tax season. I'm pretty much going to be working full time and taking 1 class. So, which will still be a rigorous class from what I've been told. So no guarantees on podcasting. That's why I'm hoping to maybe work on my blog a little bit more, so then it's easier to grab a couple of pictures and then write about it, because I can write about it like while I'm, wherever I am. However, it doesn't need to be light outside. I can do it at 8 o'clock at night. I can't sit down and record a podcast at 8 o'clock at night because the lighting would be awful. Just for me personally, I would not enjoy that. So blogging might be a little bit easier. And also, I've just been wanting to read blogs more lately. It's something that once I sort of got into the Instagram world and following people on YouTube, I kind of stopped reading blogs. But there's a couple that I've gotten back into the habit of reading that I've really been enjoying. I won't have time to read them regularly, but I still want to like pop in and read them every once in a while, because sometimes I just want to go a little bit deeper than an Instagram post, which is why I love YouTube, because you feel like you get to know people better, you see them, you hear them talk, so it's just fun to be able to get to know people that way. But I also know that sometimes I can express myself better in writing about certain things, or just go into more depth and detail in a blog post about this one project versus fitting it into a whole bunch of other things in a podcast. So I'm hoping, we'll see, I said the same thing last year. I'm hoping that I'll be able to blog a little bit more, and that hopefully that will also help me to create more stuff to put on Instagram, like some better pictures and things to go on there. Have more things to talk about it. I found that for me, once I get into the habit, like when I was in the habit of blogging more regularly, I had more ideas. It's the kind of thing where you're like, well, I don't have any ideas, so I'm not going to post anything. But once you get into the habit of it, your brain is thinking in that direction more. So I know that for me, at least, when I'm creating blog posts, my brain thinks of more ideas for blog posts. So I would like to get more into that. If there's a certain type of blog post you'd like to see, let me know. Would you rather like general life things, or get more in depth about certain projects? I will be hopefully talking about the 3-2-1 Create Challenge on there a little bit more and update that as I go, even just as a personal record of what I've done for that. So let me know. And also, if you have any blog recommendations, are there any crafty bloggers or other kinds of bloggers that you follow? Like homesteading blogs. I love like following farmers or homesteaders and things like that. Accounts like that on Instagram. So let me know if you have any recommendations. Now that I've made a mess everywhere around me that you can't see with all of my stuff, I think it's time to say goodbye to this, what will probably end up being a really long episode. Thanks for sticking with me through it. Thank you for being the kind, loving people that I know you are. And I'm looking forward to recording again. And if not, seeing you in here, then hopefully on Instagram or on my blog. So until I see you next time, I hope that you are making some time to create, even if it's just a couple of stitches or a couple of minutes spinning yarn. Make some time for yourself to create today and learn from your mistakes. Have fun learning from those mistakes that we all know. We all make them. So until I see you next time, happy creating and happy New Year.